Whenever you are.
All right, we'll get started. After a long day yesterday, we're excited to come back today and welcome two new members to the Chiefs Kingdom. Obviously, at pick 58, linebacker from Missouri, Nick Bolton, and 63 center from Oklahoma, Creed Humphrey, two outstanding prospects. We're again extremely excited to welcome both these guys to the Kingdom. And with that, I'll take your questions.
Let's go first to Pete Sweeney. Go ahead, Pete.
Brett, just in general, how do you feel that the draft is went? I know you've been a little bit more aggressive in the past. You guys kind of stayed put, and then the outlook sort of going in tomorrow. Just how do you feel the whole thing is going?
Yeah, no, it's going good. And again, I know it's been talked about the last few days. We felt like there was a lot of depth there in 2 and 3, and believe it or not, we were open to fielding some trade down calls, but we had some dialogue with some teams, and we felt like there were a number of players there that we liked. And again, there was a lot of flexibility, but you know, that really never materialized, and we sat on the board. And again, at 58, Nick Bolton was staring us in the face, and we were extremely excited about him. And then at 63, surprised that Creed was still on the board, obviously, but too good of a player to pass up. So as I mentioned to him when I called him, it's exciting to add Oklahoma tackle and then bring in an Oklahoma center. So again, we're excited. That's going to be an extremely competitive offensive line room, and there's going to be a lot of depth there. So as we talked about multiple times, 17-game season now, long preseason, and hopefully an extended playoff appearance for us. We're going to need all the help we can get, and we have a lot of talent there now.
Next to Herbie Tiopi. Go ahead, Herbie.
Hey, Brett. You mentioned the hot zone, you know, with the second and third round. Now you're out of the hot zone. What are you looking to do as you enter and you prepare for day 3 as far as position groups? What specifically are you looking for now?
I think we'll just stay to our true to our board. I don't know if we're just, you know, looking specifically as position. We're looking for value. You know, it's funny, once you get past the first 80, 90 picks, the difference in scouting and the difference of opinions, it really shows through. I mean, it's pretty consistent for the first 60, 70, 75 picks. And then boom, like once you hit to 90, you have guys that teams had in 4, 5, 6 going in that 9,500 zone. And so the board falls almost exactly the way you think the first 2.5 rounds. And then once you get into that third round, it goes all over the place. So this is where, you know, we really feel like we make a lot of ground, and you know, we spend a ton of time on these late round picks, and you know, we're excited about these unique opportunities for us because it really gets to show the depth of our scouting staff, and our guys are up there right now, and we're putting the board together, and we think that there's the value hidden in these next few picks for us. We have a 4th and 2 5s and a 6. So we're certainly looking forward to the challenge. And you know, to answer your question, Herbie, I don't know if we're like saying we want this position or that position. I think we're going to let the board play out, and we'll take the best player, guys that we think can come in here and you know, make our roster and compete and play.
Go next to Adam Teicher. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Brett. I was wondering if you could go over the 2 guys you picked tonight and just what you like about them and how you see them fitting in. And Brett, I'll have one more question also.
Well, we certainly had a lot of opportunities to watch Nick Bolton play, being local and just a great player. And you know, both these guys, I think, you know, we not only got better on the offense and defensive side, but both these guys, you talk about their intelligence, their durability, and you know, their leadership skills. I mean, these are 2 high character players, and people are going to be great in the community. They're going to be great in the locker room. They're going to come in, they're going to learn the playbook quickly. They're going to get up to speed. A lot of this, especially, you know, last year with having OTAs and this year, hopefully, you know, we get into these OTAs, but I'm sure it'll be a little bit different than in years past. You know, you got to get into the playbook and you got to get caught up to speed quick, but both these guys, Adam, I mean, they're extremely intelligent. Both captains, leaders, guys that played a ton of football at their respective universities. So I think both these guys, you talk about Nick Bolton, I mean, he's a guy that can come in here and play, and both at the Mike position and the Will position. He's got sideline to sideline range. Again, tough, smart, can make all the calls, has made all the calls. You know, you look at Anthony Hitchens and he's, you know, he's one of the guys that does a lot for us, but you know, when Hitch goes down, you know, we're really looking to add depth there. And then, again, his versatility to play either Mike or Will. and Creed's another guy that's played a lot of football. I mentioned earlier we had some flexibility there with Austin and with Joe Tooney. Now with Creed coming in here, needless to say, now you feel good about leaving Tooney where he's most comfortable, and that's at that guard position. And Creed now gives you a bigger center option, and we've been talking about that. Again, it'll be a great competition, and they're going to have to come in here and compete, and may the best man win. Austin's shown that he can come in and play, and he's done that over his career, and shown he can do that at a high level. Creed offers, a bigger body, and it kind of that pocket and the way that those larger linemen can affect the pocket is certainly different with Creed blocking in there. So again, it'll be great competition, and we have some flexibility now, and we have most importantly, a lot of depth.
Yeah. Okay. And, it certainly seemed like at the end of last season, you were going to make some changes on the offensive line, but is this more than you anticipated with all these new guys, 4 veterans, Creed now, you got 2 guys opting back in? Is this more than you maybe anticipated when you got this project started?
Well, I think the end result may have been more than we anticipated, but again, that's, when free agency starts, those few names go off the board quick, but we know that there's different phases to add players, and whether that be a trade, day one free agency, a week or 2 into free agency, there's value at all these levels. So there'll be values the first day of free agency, a week or 2 into free agency, potential trade early on in the draft, and then tomorrow and into the weekend, day 3 in the draft and undrafted free agency. So we just knew that if we were patient and if we didn't press and, we just stayed disciplined. And I think, we saw that. Again, this goes back to the earlier press conference. We went out and we signed Joe Tooney. It was a no-brainer for us. We took a swing at a tackle. We didn't get it. We remained patient. And then we were able to bring Orlando in here. We signed Austin Blythe. And I think anytime you go into free agency, you make these moves to allow flexibility, and it allows you to stay true to your board. And then a talent like Creed Humphrey becomes available. And then, you bring him in here too. So you have to look at it in multiple ways, because, Austin comes in here and again, he's shown he can play, but he is on a 1-year deal, right? And we need to maintain continuity on that offensive line, and hopefully in the future we can get Orlando done. And then you have Creed now under contract for 4 years and Tooney under contract for 4 or 5 years. So now you have continuity, depth, and talent, and that's a tribute to our coaching staff and our scouting staff of just being maintaining discipline and being patient throughout this whole process.
Let's go next to Nate Taylor. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, Brett.
Hey, Nate, how you doing?
Good, man. Doing good. Just, I think, before the draft started, you talked about just how difficult it was to sort of get medical information, just knowing how guys were going to come into this league. You mentioned the durability and the consistency of Nick Bolton and Creed. I just wonder how much of that was a factor, staying where you were versus trading down, and obviously looking at the overall prospects, given just how wide of a range the medical background was for each guy.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. We were worried about some of those guys that were combine invites that didn't make the combine, and/or guys that weren't combine invites, and we had special, or I should say, separate dialogue with Rick. When we entered this process, we felt comfortable with the guys. Now, I think there were some teams that if they didn't get a hard medical grade, that they just weren't comfortable taking those guys on board. Now, there were a few guys that a combination of not having the hard medical and our docs that we trust just weren't all the way convinced on certain things and needed actual updated MRIs and didn't get those. And I don't think we had a lot of those guys on our board. Fortunately for us, when it came down to our picks, both these guys, we had solid medical grades on, but I think that's a fair question. And I think that there were teams, and I think there's a few guys that maybe fell a little bit more in the draft. And there was some of the dialogue in our rooms thinking that, it's obvious that these guys don't have hard medicals, and that could have been a factor. Again, it didn't come into play with our picks, fortunately. We did have a small number of guys that we weren't comfortable with, but in general, I thought, we addressed that pretty well.
Yeah, 2 more. We'll go Sam and then Matt Derrick. Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, Brett.
Hey, Sam.
Given what you guys have done the past 3 years, as a team, how do you balance, especially with the early picks, guys that can help you now versus, realizing that these are guys, they're going to be here for 4 years?
Well, I think, you do your best you can in that regard. I really think though, we just are going to just take the best player, and knowing that, there are long seasons and you have to have depth at all these positions. And within a week or two, you can have a wave of injuries at one position group that can set you back. And there's certainly some thought. I mean, we always look at the board and we always look at it, how we'll line up this season and what we'll look like in the next 2 seasons. So it does come into play, but I think if you start focusing on other things other than the true value of the players, I think that's when you miss out on really good players. And, we certainly had talk and dialogue about, where our roster will be in a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. But again, I think it comes into play when there's similar values. When there's big discrepancies, you just stick to the board and always take the best player available.
We'll go last to Matt Derrick. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, Brett, hope you're able to get some rest this weekend at some point.
Yeah, for sure. We got one more day tomorrow, so it'll be a lot of fun. And then we can relax, go watch the Derby, right?
There you go. Hey, you talked about last night about, you try to look into the future a little bit, and with the numbers have a little bit of confidence about who might be there. Coming into today, what was your likelihood in your mind that Nick Bolton was going to be that guy for you at 58? And then with Humphrey, how surprised were you that, the consensus best center in the league was still there?
Well, I think there's always a few surprises every year that, there's always a handful of guys that slip. And again, it's one thing to look at where guys are valued. And there could be teams that are high on these players, but for some reason they go in a different direction. And then you'll have a gap of maybe teams that didn't have that specific need. So even though he was valued high, it just, the need and the fit it didn't align. So that's what you see a lot, I think, with some of these guys that are perceived to be guys that have fallen. I mean, maybe teams just didn't see him the way other people saw him. But I think a lot of the times it's a situation where, I mean, Creed could have easily went maybe pick 48 or 50, and maybe he was on a team's discussion board at 48 or 49. They didn't go in that direction. They went somewhere else. And then the next wave of teams didn't really need a center to have that specific need. So then he falls. And we're certainly a benefactor of that tonight. So a lot of it's just timing and circumstance and the way the board plays out. But we went into this day 2 and we had a pocket full of players and it was kind of right down to the end there. And certainly Bolton and Creed were both in those pockets. I think we had a few more names on there, but clearly those were the 2 best names on the board. And again, we're happy the way the board unfolded, and we're happy to add both of these players to our roster.
Brett, we appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Yep. Thanks, you guys.